This month has been insane. I've been all over the place filming projects, and all the while, box sets of vinyl and other pieces of vinyl have been piling up at my house. So be prepared, vinyl community. There is about to be a downpour of videos from this channel, and we are starting today with the Beatles Revolver Super Deluxe box set. Got this yesterday and I broke it open and have a cool unboxing video that you can chill out to here and watch. In this video, we're going to talk about why I got this and should you consider getting this box set. Cutting to the chase, I think you should get it. You should definitely get this box set, but why, again, and what all comes in this thing. The Beatles estate have been releasing reissues of some of the best of the Beatles catalog with deluxe and super deluxe box sets for one album at a time. They did one for Sgt. Pepper, Abbey Road, Let It Be, and also the Beatles singles. Now there's also the Grail out there, the Beatles box set in mono. This is the entire catalog in mono with the original UK releases, and we'll talk more about the UK versus the US in a minute. These box sets usually come in two forms. There's a CD version and a vinyl version. I could be getting some of this wrong because I'm a little late to the game on this, but if you're interested in the Beatles, which, come on, if you follow this channel at all, you probably are, these box sets are what kind of precipitates the reissues that come out that you might find at Walmart or wherever. So even when these box sets come out, even if you're not gonna get the full box set, you should still pay attention to the other things that come along and surrounding the release. Like in this case, a particular gem might come along that's in the box set that really makes you wanna get it, like it did for me in this box set. One of the reasons I started collecting vinyl back in the day is I was in the generation of Napster and stealing music in the early 2000s, and this happened to also be right when I started amassing a large vinyl collection, and right away there was a realization to me that albums would change tracks or track orders or combine tracks or only have greatest hits. And for the most part, I don't really get into greatest hits records. Full albums are what really appeal to me. Concept albums are even cooler, and I really despise it when record labels step in, usually big labels, not indie labels, but it has happened with them as well. They start changing and rearranging song lists and all of that. It's to the point where now a lot of the albums that you might find on Apple Music or Spotify are not even the same album that the artist originally released. This happens a lot with reggae and jazz, but the Beatles, the biggest band arguably ever, were victims of this as well. Almost every time the Beatles released a record in the UK in the 1960s, it was followed by an American counterpart that was actually a different version of what the band intended. Sometimes track lists were changed, sometimes songs were changed or taken out or added. Could you imagine being the dork who thinks that he knows better than Lennon and McCartney on how their album should be presented to the world? It's absolutely insane. And I don't have all the details on this. There's actually a fantastic channel out there called Parlogram Auctions, which is dedicated to Beatles vinyl specifically and its history, and he can tell you all about the details of these debacles in record label meddling. You should definitely subscribe to them. Considered one of the greatest albums of all time, Revolver is also part of this mess. But fortunately, I believe this was the last time that this happened for the Beatles, as Sgt. Pepper and all the ones that followed, the Beatles had complete control over. And to add to the confusion of Beatles vinyl, all of their albums are recorded in mono. I believe they were recorded that way, but then reissued or repressed later as stereo editions. And some people hate the Beatles in stereo. Some people consider it awesome. You have to decide for yourself. Personally, I prefer to listen to it as it was intended. So if the band records in mono, I prefer to listen in mono. If you're not aware, the difference is the separation of instruments through the speakers. Way back in the day, most people listened on a single or mono speaker. So a lot of vinyl was recorded and cut to mono to handle the single speaker setup, especially with pop groups like the Beatles. Our moms were listening to them as teens on these little suitcase players with one small speaker. This is actually what led to the now legendary Led Zeppelin II Robert Ludwig mix, which apparently when played on these little players actually made the needle jump and skip, and some A&R rep at Atlantic Records ordered it to be recut, thus super rare vinyl is born. When you're out there hunting for Beatles records, it's important to know these differences because there are also many price differences with them. A UK mono edition is going to fetch a lot more than an American stereo edition. And that is what makes this particular box super cool to me. Basically, I only got this box for the mono edition, but what else came with this to make me want to pay the full price for this? And yes, I did pay the full price for this. I'm not sponsored or anything like that, and I didn't get it ordered early or anything like that. First off, I love box sets, but they are dangerous. I can admit that. Mainly they're expensive, and some people complain about them taking up lots of space and all with these boxes and everything like that, but the artwork on this is just amazing and the feel to this is really nice. I'm not a rich man, but there are some bands or artists that I will spend my money on because they mean a lot to me, and the Beatles are one of them. My dad and I share a great bond with the Beatles. He's the first person to get me into them, and the first song that I ever heard that I can remember from them was Twist and Shout, but the first one that really moved me and made me go, whoa, like music can actually do this to you, was Eleanor Rigby. All that said, I didn't just spend money on here just for the mono edition. It was what made me pull the trigger, but you also get other things in this, so let's talk about some of the other things that you get with this box set. And I just want to take a second here because I want to actually put this out there for everybody, and definitely let me know in the comments below. I want to get a conversation going about this. When you go and buy these box sets, do you take the records out of the box and put them into individual sleeves and put them on your shelf that way, thus basically having an empty box left on your shelf with maybe only the book or something like that, if it even comes with one? So please let me know in the comments because I'm torn. I just started kind of collecting box sets in the last year or two, or at least ones that have come with multiple records. So I'm not really sure what to do. I don't know if I should keep them in outer sleeves. My gut is telling me to put them in outer sleeves. I have a friend of mine who has a bunch of box sets and he takes his out of the boxes. So maybe that's what a lot of people are complaining about the fact that what do you do with this box after you put all these records onto your shelf? Anyway, I digress. Definitely let me know in the comments. Definitely subscribe. Definitely like this video. This is the sessions and outtakes and demos, a really awesome gatefold cover, which this is like an alternate cover for the Beatles here with an alternate cover there. Very, very cool. Here's the alternate cover and the back cover here, which is basically the same back cover as the main edition, except obviously the different track listings. The label here is meant to look like a promotional copy, which is really, really awesome. Inside the booklet, which we'll get into in a minute, they talk about each of these sessions and it takes an in-depth look at each of the sessions individually and gives a big write-up about them, which is really cool. I'm not a big fan of outtakes or demo tracks, but I really like outtakes when it comes to the Beatles, since they did so many takes and there are a lot of gems out there when you really dive into them. Tomorrow Never Knows right away on this one just blew me away. It's pretty awesome. I also have the Escher demos from the White Album, which I got really cheap at Walmart, and they are really great as well. Maybe in this month of box sets, we're gonna pull that one out too. And in case you wanna know, I have a Third Man Vault coming in, which I already have actually, a Vinyl Me Please box set, the Alice in Chains Dirt Super Deluxe box set coming in, an Otis Redding box set, which I have been meaning to share with everybody, and possibly one more if I can't control myself. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of that and see how insane I am with this stuff. If we get a ton more subs from this video, I will definitely go out and get that big box set that I've been looking at. I'm sure I will go get it anyway, but subscribe and inspire me to do it, please. Next in the box set, you get this 7-inch 45 of Paperback Writer and Rain, which are stereo on one side and mono on the other. So you actually get two tracks on one side of this. And I love that this is an awesome replica, just like it was released back in the day from Parlophone. It's a very, very cool 7-inch. There's a lot of information on this 7-inch too in the book that you get with this, which is really, really cool. And again, I just love the fact that they give you the mono on one side and the stereo on the other. Again, I think this is just an awesome replica of how these 45s looked when they came out originally. I love the ads that are on the back of these things for the record cleaners that you should get to make your records sound better, and all the Parlophone logos and stuff like that that come with this thing. I mean, this stuff is really cool. You can get records in the mail. All these cool little ads that come on the bottom of these things are just awesome. So I love that they included this little thing with it. I make sure that I put my stuff in a sleeve and in an outer sleeve as well. I don't put the record back into that horrible sleeve. In fact, it was in there inside of the sessions disc when we got it, so I was a little afraid that this 45 might be messed up. It's actually a little bit warped, but it's okay. Now here is the new Giles, I guess it's Giles Martin stereo mix. Again, this is where some people don't like the reissues, but I have to say I have Rubber Soul and Help and a few others of the newer releases in stereo, and they were like $19. They actually sound pretty good. If you're a new vinyl collector and you want to start adding Beatles to your collection, they're a great way to go and a cheap way to start. I would definitely suggest doing that instead of trying to go spend a ton of money on an original edition. This stereo mix is definitely an interesting mix. I compared this to my original, maybe it's a 70s edition of a Rainbow label American version of Revolver in stereo. And the travesty there is that they take off 3 songs from the original album, I'm Only Sleeping, And Your Bird Can Sing, and Doc Robert. All 3 happen to be John Lennon songs, by the way, and it's just amazing how they just railroaded him on taking him off of one of the greatest albums ever. But the stereo edition that I have, the Rainbow label, I actually think sounds better than this. I actually think that stereo edition has a better bottom end and a just less compressed sound. Everything on this sounds very tight. It almost sounds to me like with this, they're trying to get it to sound like the mono edition, which we're gonna get into in a minute. And that's kind of the feeling that I got from it. First, let me show you the cover here. The cover is very, very nice. These covers are not bad. They're not extremely, like, they're not very hard tip-on covers. Maybe I'm being spoiled a little bit with the Tone Poet stuff, but these are pretty nice. They have a nice laminate. They're a good laminate cover. And then here's your backside, which I do like that you get the original backside Parlophone, all the ads and everything. Again, the ad for cleaning your records down here, which is very cool. I think that's very awesome. And then here is the stereo edition label. And I love, again, that it's the Parlophone original, and again, the original track listing, which is one of the main reasons why I wanted this box set to begin with. I don't have an original track listing version of Revolver. The version I have is that Rainbow label, even though it does sound a little bit better than this stereo edition. Anyway, we'll get to the mono in a second. So this is the new stereo mix of this, and I believe that this is out separately from the box set. This is kind of one of the things I was saying you should pay attention to when these box sets come out. You'll probably be able to get this for like 20 bucks at any local record store in the next couple of months or whatever. So definitely keep an eye out for it. It's a fun mix. It's a fun thing to listen to. It definitely is nice to have the original track listing. So if you don't have the original track listing, it's worth getting just for that. That definitely is a reason to have it. You get 3 extra songs, period. So that's good. Now we come to the mono edition of Revolver. Now, apparently the rumor is this is cut from the original tape. I don't know for a fact on that. I also don't know how much I'd be able to hear that difference. What I do know is this is the closest thing to the original 1966 album that you can get, and it's brand new on 180 gram vinyl. So this should be, and I can tell you that for my collection, it is the best sounding version of Revolver that I own, and I have 2 of those Rainbow Capital versions. Both are in great shape, and I used to think that they sounded amazing, but the mono edition of this really brings the band to the center of my stereo, and each time something like a vocal or a solo or effect happens, it comes right out to the front. I could definitely see, though, how an untrained ear might think that the stereo version sounds better, especially as a drummer. As a drummer, the stereo does sound better, but it's all on all the time, whereas the mono gives each moment to each member. And I've heard people say that the Beatles are a 60s band, so they should sound like a 60s band, and I think this is what they mean. This sounds at times like it's gonna blow out the range since everything is stuffed into that mono sound, but it sounds really, really good for this group and for this record in particular. Again, there are the track differences that we talked about with the US version versus the UK versions. They take out I'm Only Sleeping, Doc Robert, and Your Bird Can Sing. This makes it just a completely different album. Like, John Lennon is basically just a backup singer at that point when you take out those 3 songs. So it's great to have these UK versions. By the way, the stereo mix, like I said, also has that same lineup of songs. It's just not the mono mix. And then finally, we got this awesome booklet, which I'm not going to sit here and flip through. I'll show you some of the pages here and some of the pictures, which are just really cool. I like these ones in particular, these blue ones and these red ones, which are just really awesome. This book is massive. It's hardback and was way too much information that I will probably ever read, but I love that it's there. There are so many great picks. Like I said, those ones with the blue backs and the red backs really just get me. I have a complete other video where I go through the entire booklet if you want to actually go and take a look at the pictures. I also love the real pictures that they have of the master tracks and the master tapes that are in here and some of the notes and stuff from the band. That kind of stuff always really gets me. So it's really awesome that it'll be here. One day I'll probably look through it all while I'm listening to the records drunk or whatever. We haven't even talked about the music here, which, come on, what is there to even say? This is arguably the greatest Beatles album of all time. The leaps they are taking here are noticeable with every song, leading from the early to mid 60s rock band sound to the psychedelic craziness that was to come on Sgt. Pepper. It's a tie between this and Rubber Soul as my favorite Beatles albums, although Beatles for Sale is right up there for me. The era of this Beatles record is my favorite. I'm a huge fan of almost anything going on in 1966 musically, and this album was at the height of the era. If you've never heard this album, stop this video right now, go and listen to it. It's a requirement. I'm so grateful to have this now. And please know again, I paid full money for this, so no sponsors or promotions here. I think if the previous ones also had mono editions, I would have jumped on those as well. I'm trying to get those mono editions for everything. Please, Beatles, do this for Rubber Soul next year. I've heard rumors that you will. It only makes sense, but please include the original mono edition if you do in another Super Deluxe just like this. I would love to have both of them. If you don't have the cash for this, I totally get it. These are not cheap, and technically you're only getting one album here, but go get the new stereo edition mix. It's a normal price and totally worth it, again, if you don't have the original UK version, just to get that song lineup. Like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I had a ton of stuff happening in October, so I'm hoping to have a lot more videos out soon. Subscribe below so that you don't miss them. Box sets are coming in left and right, and I'm super excited about the Vinyl Me Please one that I just got. You really got to stick around to see that one. And while I was out in Nashville filming, I did manage to get to one of the greatest record stores that I've ever visited. That is coming in the next video. Definitely hit the bell to be alerted when that drops. Okay, I said enough. I'm gonna go chill and listen to Revolver in mono. I will see you guys on the next one.